Mr. Ramani just needs to accept my invitation, and then we're ready to roll. Oh, hi.
Hi, Akila.
Hi, Mr. Ramani. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me too?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramani, for us as part of our Circle of Trust series.
My pleasure.
Okay. Actually, honestly, here, nobody really, I don't really need to introduce you at all, because you're such an eminent and prominent name in the, in the arts circle in Chennai. And we see your name in the paper as well. You're also a very good critic. And description wise, Mr. Ramani, for those who who probably don't know him here, and I suspect there are hardly any, he's a visual artist and a set and a costume designer. But I have personally seen how he creates magic, especially on stage and his costume. And I think that his big strength is his imagination and his really deep and nuanced understanding of dance and dancers. And with that, he adds these beautiful textures and layers both to costume and to sets, and just elevates productions. So thank you, Mr. Ramani, for joining us on this conversation. I hope you're not nervous about being on Instagram.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
It's new to me, but it's an experience. Yeah.
Great. So, Mr. Ramani, I'm going to start off firstly by asking you about asking you to attempt to, in some sense, encapsulate your journey, 4.5-decade journey in the world of arts and of working with sabhas and dancers. And what have been your key takeaways from that? It'd be lovely if you could start off by talking about that.
Okay. This 4.5 years journey, see, basically, I have been trained, and basically I'm a visual artist. So that is the primary, most important and primary basis of my work. So that is the training which has taken me on this journey of the allied areas. Okay. If I'm talking about journey, what I think I can, I don't know, I've done a lot of things, but looking back at it, I somewhere subconsciously realized that somewhere there's been a contribution from my side to the arena of stage aesthetics. When I started out 4.5 decades back, we just had a blue curtain, blue backdrop was all that was there. So I kind of changed the look of all that. So these kind of contribution, when I sit back, I realized there have been many instances where I think as we go along, I can talk about some of these salient features. And also my working in dance and music has also given me a lot in terms of early days, especially when I got exposed to the art world, the lectures and demonstration. A lot of inputs that I got from the great artists that I've seen, some have subconsciously come into my system, and they reflect in the art that I do, which is the medium of collage, which I specialize in now.
Right. You talked about instances. I just thought it'd be nice to start off with some story. Do you recall any instance from your blue curtain days to,
See, the first time, when I started out, the blue curtain days, I will tell you, I was asked to do the stage for Krishnagandh Sabha, which was attached structure in those days. And they had this little faded backdrop and all that. And I was invited to do the stage setting for the Natya Kala conference by Mr. Dhananjayan.
Okay.
And so I said, let me transform this place. I mean, I had to do something to make the place aesthetic, because it's a great festival that's happening, a conference, and I needed that aesthetic had to be put. So I used jute as a material. In fact, I realized, like it said, in the 45 years, my contribution that of bringing jute into the stage arena. Madras has never used jute before. I've used it, but also I think it also was a spin-off, not necessarily definitely on just aesthetics alone. There's also the thing that there was no money. Okay, I was never paid anything. There was no money to do this, so I had to get the thing. So I used for a material which can look very nice on stage under lights, at the same time be little inexpensive. So I came across and did this jute setting. So that was one special moment for me. Uh,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, and carrying on this jute thing, I can also talk about yeah. Jute again was used later when I did the Chidambaram Natyanjali stage, where I did some transformation to the stage. I think probably I can talk about it in detail. Yeah.
Sure. I also see something really beautiful in the background, Mr. Ramani. That's obviously your creation.
Yes, that's a mural I painted on the wall of my living room. It's a Buddha mural that I've done.
Oh,
I
beautiful.
use mural on the wall. This is one of my doing murals. Is also one of my other activities.
And
Murals and paintings, and so art is very basic. So if I don't have a proper aesthetic background, I'm not doing justice to the work I'm doing.
right. There's a comment to have somebody keep the camera stationary, Mr. Ramani. Could you just station your camera in a particular place? So, because it's a bit shaky.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. They're okay now?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Ramani, our series is.
To show the mural. The camera was moved to show the
Oh.
mural, and I think I was holding it initially, so now it's steadier. Okay, yeah.
Mr. Ramani, I wanted to ask you, our series is called Circle of Trust. And I want to talk to you about your understanding of this word trust, especially in the context of the world of dance and dancers. You've worked with so many dancers. Each dancer has an aesthetic of her own. You've cultivated and nurtured so many relationships with dancers. Can you talk to us about the importance of this word trust as an artist?
Okay, there are two aspects of trust that I think we're talking about here. The first is the trust in the capability, the artistic quality of the other artists that you're collaborating with. Okay, when a dancer comes to me, the dancer should have complete trust and faith in my work. Similarly, I should have the trust in what the dancer is going to be doing. So that trust on a mutual level, it works very importantly that we relate to each other. And there should be complete trust. Now, if I'm trusting, if the dancer trusts me, there should be a complete trust so that they know I'm doing the best for them that can be done. So that trust is very important. So that is one aspect of trust that we're talking about. Another aspect that I think of trust that comes in is in terms of money and credit that comes into play. Okay. So monetarily, you're talking of trust. Okay. There, I must tell you, I have a lot of experiences where people have taken you for a ride by not giving you the money. Okay. There are two, three categories. One, the category who will give you the money, won't give you the credit. There'll be one category who's going to give you the credit, but not give you money. It's just a handful of them who've given both. They've given you the money and also giving you the stature to, project yourself. So that kind of a trust monetarily is there. So these are the two aspects of trust, I think, which we need to address and look at in this place.
So how do you, what have been your key takeaways? I mean, experiences like these must be huge learnings, right? How have you responded to these, and how have you still guide them continue to move forward?
No, I'm not able to hear you. Can you repeat?
So I said, experiences like these teach you a lot.
It does.
But how have you, despite these odds, continued to remain in this field and move forward and so well?
I've continued. I think it's basically the passion for the art. It's what has been keeping me going. It is. I would definitely not say it is a monetary reward, which has been very, very minimal. Like I said, there are very few times you've been paid or given acknowledged. So it's basically the passion that has kept me going. And I think it's also, at this point, I would like to say that it is probably the lack of, this thing of not giving money or credit to the artist who's involved is probably the reason why I don't see many new entrants to the field. No, not many want to take up doing the stage for the classical arts per se. They're willing to do film sets, which gets you money and all that. But classical art sets, nobody really wants to come in because there is no money, there is no kind of credit. So, so that is the reason I think which needs to be addressed. More people should come in, for which it has to become worthwhile.
Right. There's one, at the time that I kind of decided to feature you in this series, there's one question I have been like, been dying to ask you. Is that in all your work, Mr. Ramani? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. The voice is breaking a little, but I can hear now. Yeah.
Okay. In all your work, Mr. Ramani, there is this very palpable feminine spirit and energy, right? And I want you to talk a little bit in detail about how you create that work and what is your connection with that. There's this very, very feminine energy that whether it's a set or a costume that you create, I always feel that it's, and I may be wrong, but I always feel that your set and your costumes, your art has a very palpable feminine energy. Could you please talk about that?
I don't know whether I could call it feminine energy, but aesthetics by itself, I think borders toward the feminine in the common parlance. People look at aesthetics and the arts itself as a feminine part of life. Okay, so probably that would be the thing. But I think a lot of the inputs that I've got into the stage is dependent and based on the strong foundation that I got in the arena of arts. I studied in the College of Arts and Crafts, Madras, the first institution set up for arts in the country, much before JJ and all came. And the foundation that I think that they gave, the 5 years that we studied, the foundation in the terms of the language and the grammar of art is what I think has helped me adapt myself to each and everything that came my way. Could it be stage, dance, costumes, settings, or events, or designing cards and brochures and things like that, textiles. Everything was an offshoot of all this, the training that I underwent. So that there, I think the feminine thing which you are talking about is possibly because I've been working a lot with basically women, dancers. Okay, so somewhere, and when I'm doing a stage, I'm very very conscious that I do whatever I do to enhance the dancer on stage. My contribution to stage should be that I am there on the sidelines to project the dancer, and I do not count the limelight. I am not there to take away the limelight. I'm there to enhance what they're doing. So that aspect is very, very important for me, to project the dancer. And because we work with them, I think the feminine angle comes in.
Perhaps, yeah. I'm also curious, Mr. Ramani, about, you are an artist with an aesthetic of your own. And then when you work with different artists who have different aesthetics, how do you sort of customize your own aesthetic to fit into theirs?
See, what I do is I try and understand and study the personality. So I have to understand the person and then design according to you. Okay, they might have their own requirements, but there are certain things which come from my aesthetic background, like certain things I will not accede to. All along through my this 4.5 years decade journey, I have never used artificial material for my stage. It has always been natural. Okay, so I use fabrics, I use flowers, I use mat, I use jute. I do a whole lot of natural materials. So I don't compromise on that aesthetic aspect of mine. If there's a demand for somebody who says I want glorious light, fancy lights and paper settings and all that, which I don't do. I don't work on that. But otherwise, I try and understand the personality of the dancer and then the theme that they're working on. That's very important to me. If they're doing a thematic, that's when they call. So the theme has to reflect in my stage. It has to be projected onto the setting. So that is how I work.
Okay. For those who don't know, Mr. Ramani is also like a hands-on artist. So I know that at conference, he stay up and wait for the last rehearsal to end, and then at 10:30 p.m. he would oversee the set and show up the next morning at 6 a.m. to ensure that everything is in place. Mr. Ramani, how have you done this without so many years?
Without?
So many assistants for so many years.
See, that's a very important question. It will address a lot of things about the scenario that we're looking at. Okay. First thing, like I said, there's no money. Okay. There's no payment that comes from the sabas or very often the dancers who don't want to pay you the money. Okay. So they're not able to. So when that is the thing, where does a question of getting assistance come in? I have to pay, so I can't ask somebody to do something free for me. I've never done that. So even in my exhibitions, when I have exhibitions, I've called dancers to dance for 15-20 minutes for my exhibition. Even there, I've paid some whatever little money I could do for the 20 minutes. I will pay them money. I've never taken anything for free. So when the money doesn't come in, so where does the question of having a lot of helpers who will come and work without money? I have to shell that also out of my pocket. And secondly, another thing is, none of these organizations come forward to give you any support in terms of materials and this thing. In fact, I remember the first time I did the stage at Krishnagandh Sabha, I had to climb up a 25 feet ladder all by myself. There's nobody to hold the ladder. A rickety old ladder, which didn't have the steps. I climbed that to do the stage, all because of the enthusiastic and passionate about it. So that happened. And again in Chidambaram, when I did the Natyanjali, there's again no payment. I did it more as an offering for the stage. And again, there's no facilities. I had to climb up on a speaker box. I fell down, hurt my head, had stitches, all that happened. So all these experiences have been there. But I don't see, even today, I think there is a lack of apathy that nobody wants to support you with quality stuff in the auditoriums. So that needs to be rectified.
No, but I'm so thankful to you for bringing this up, because these are all things that we need to think about and see what we can do, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so important, see, it's important to also treat artists well, See, while you're talking about it, I'd like to tell you not only about non-payment. So once some of these places, once you've agreed on certain amount, it's so demeaning. An artist will squirm many times before going and asking for his money. Okay, you've done the work and you expect the money to come. But so often it happens that you have to keep reminding them, following up with them to make that what is due to you, make the balance payments, which can also be very demeaning. So all this, give that artist that due respect that he deserves, In terms, not only organization, dancers who don't give you credit, I mean, you don't lose anything by sharing your credit. Give that credit to the people who work with you to make you look beautiful on stage.
But kudos to you, Mr. Ramani, to still kind of stay at it, and also to be so honest, because it's imperative that people listen to this and we do whatever it takes to ensure these things don't happen again, right? So kudos to you for...
Really great. I hope things get rectified, and it'll be nice, to work. It's a pleasure then to work.
No, absolutely. I'm just going to ask you one last question before I hand over the screen to Kritika. Is that, do you think that that your art, your set and costume Do they, the fact that you're a visual artist and a set and a costume designer, do the three in some sense feed off each other, or is art the kind of starting point for them all?
It has always been interdisciplinary. It has always been interdisciplinary. Each of them rub off onto the other. In fact, the first example I'll tell you how I got into stage, the dance stage, happened because I'm very fond of music and dance. I'm trained in music. I've learned Carnatic music. I can sing, and then I have watched dance performances from childhood. I had a cousin called K.R. Geeta from the Pandanallur school. As a child, I used to go with her to the Pandanallur school, while he was her junior, and they've all studied together. So I've been exposed to dance from those days. So while all this was happening, there was a festival that was happening in Nadagan Sabha, and I went and told these people, the Kalamandir Trust, you're having the two arts. Why not the third art to be brought into the space? So what I did is I took an exhibition of paintings from different artists based on music and dance. Okay, I collected a whole lot of artworks and then displayed them in the foyer of Nadagan Sabha. I'm talking of 4 decades back, where
Okay.
today, of course, everybody will talk of collaborations, paintings, and I'm interacting with this musician and all that stuff. But 4 decades back, and the most interesting thing about this whole experience was I took so much of effort, displayed some huge paintings and sculptures on the foyer, and then when I asked some of the dancers, they said, "What exhibition?" I didn't see anything. They would just walk past the corridor without
Even
batting an idea, glancing at the works. They just walk past, And I see that happening with a lot of things even today. Okay, you might have a poster, you might have something, you will have a rangoli, people will walk all over it. Okay, all that happens. So this interdisciplinary thing has been happening in all my work. Like I did something with Tombais. I did an exhibition where I said Tombais is a traditional popular thing. Let me give it a lease of life to that. So I may computerize that and worked on that. And then soon after that, an opportunity came for me to do a set for Natyarangam's thematic festival. Okay, yeah, the thematic festival which happened where it was a Muslim theme. So you're talking about an Islamic theme, and Islam always the women is always in a burqa and the shielded and all that. So I decided to use a tombai as a prop. So when the curtains went, there was just this tombai which is lit, and slowly as the tombai rose, okay, there was Anita sitting there in that spotlight. So the use of a tombai from a textile thing onto a stage. And the same tombai was used again in for a disposable set which traveled around 25 cities in the US, Cleveland Cultural Alliance. Okay, so they did a dance production for which I did an Agraharam set. So Agraharam set needed the pillars. So I used the tombes as pillars, and that collapsed. I can show you. No, this is not the one. This is another stage which I did of using mat.
okay,
Okay.
lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you hold it for just
This is the one I'm talking about.
yeah.
I don't know what this. It's about the Cleveland Cultural Alliance
Okay.
setting of the tumbes. I created a painted door, so the whole thing looked like an agraharam. And all this was done in fabric and tumbes to travel around 25 cities.
Wow. Super. Thank you, Mr. Ramani. So I'm not sure I got to keep my watch handy today, but while we transition, I'm going to the screen and I request everybody to re-log back in for Kritika's segment for 20 minutes. So just one small request, Mr. Ramani, while we make the transition, Praveenji also mentioned that your camera is a bit shaky. Could you just keep some books and fix it so it's not moving?
Okay. I'll do that.
Yeah, that would be great. We will log back in exactly a minute. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ramani, for your very generous sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, nice talking
Bye.
to you.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. That was a beautiful starting session to VV Ramani sir, who is a brilliant artist, and he's so multifaceted. It's not just art that he does, it's decor, it's costumes, and he's just a wholesome artist. And I think we talk a lot about artists being successful, but what we don't often realize is we don't delve deep into that tough journey that takes them towards success. So, which is kind of the point of this whole series. So, we're looking into brilliant artists and their journeys, and I am going to get Ramani uncle on this live. He's yet to join us. But yes, we are going to be discussing with Ramani sir more about his work with dance productions, with artists, about his paintings, and about his journey as a whole. So you guys can please keep sending us questions. So we'll definitely respond to it. There he is.
Hello, Uncle.
Hi, Kritika. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, fine. Yeah.
This angle is much better.
Okay.
Yes. So that was a brilliant start to this whole session. You spoke so much about a lot of interesting snippets of your journey, but I would like to personally delve more into your art, your craft, and the influences that come into play and your experiences through your journey. So to begin with, I think there's what sets your work apart is it's according to me, it's minimalist, it's minimalistic, yet it's so aesthetic. So I'm sure that every artist has strong influences. So what do you think has been major influences in your journey?
In terms of external experiences you're talking about, or
Both,
my experiences?
both.
Both.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. In terms of external experiences, I must say a lot of work that I do, by the way it turns out, is also because I have an open mind and an eye which is wide open. So I take in anything and everything that I see around me. Okay. So I imbibe a lot subconsciously from a lot of things I see, a lot of things I hear. All these inputs uh, come into play in my artwork. Okay. Like you're talking about a minimalistic set, which I do. Okay. So one reason for the minimalistic set is the reason that I very particular, my aesthetic defines that whatever uh, is done should not overpower the main performer. Okay, so that is one of the reasons why I underplay certain aspects of my designing there, because I'm there to suggest and add on to the what the dancer is doing. So that is the important aspect. And second reason, I think minimalistic, like I spoke to Akila, is also the budgetary constraint. Okay,
Yes.
the restraint, the little budget that you have in your hand, you have to kind of
Work
play
with
around
that.
work with that.
Okay, so these days, especially dancers, Patona, they kind of a lot of them at least, even for solo productions, a lot of newcomers kind of want grand sets. Or Arangetrathake, the background, the decor, the entrance, everything is like Bahubali style. So, according to you, from your point of view, what would you suggest for a solo performance, and what would you think would work very well for group productions?
Okay. For solo productions, I think the decor should be a little underplayed, a little more subtle, because as it is, with the kind of huge stage that you're having, the dancer in proportion in terms of the space, okay, has to be seen properly. So what happens when you do overpowering sets, it kind of dominates the dancer, and the dancer has to be exceptionally brilliant to take your attention away from all the grandeur of the sets to focus on. So I would suggest that individual dancers restrict their decor and designs on the backdrop.
Okay.
Like I'll show you this photograph. Yeah.
Chitraka, yes. What a lovely
Chitraka.
set.
I did a very it was IDA program where I did a minimal setting of just an archway with a bell and a pathway and all that. And they were all individual dancers, 1 or 2 dancers per day together. So I didn't overplay. It was there, my set was there, but it did not overpower any of the dancers. Okay. Now, in this a small digression in this set, I would like to talk about. Now, I'll show it again. I was telling you about being aware and being exposed to a lot of things outside. Now, you see the white circles here on this setting. Okay.
Yes.
These are all the decorations, picked decorations that were used in the Durga Puja pandals. Okay.
Okay.
So I found the pit very interesting, and I used that pit onto the stage here, and it was very expensive again. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing which interesting here is probably this passageway. You know, there's
yes.
Colosseum that is there. Yeah.
Correct.
So the Colosseum, I have an interesting story to share. I wanted to do this Colosseum for this opening, and like I said, with the minimum budget that you have, you can't. I would have actually done it in wood, but to carve out a lotus Colosseum in wood is also very expensive. But I did need a Colosseum there to highlight that entrance. And as I was walking, I was blinking ahead. 2 days before the performance, as I was walking through the market, suddenly my eyes on the wire pool. Okay. The wire pool, the lantern flower. I said, wow, that is what I need. So I picked up 2 of the wire pool, and I used them as an entrance to the thing. You can see that here. I'm not very clear the photograph is, but it worked so beautifully here. So this happened because, it won't be clear, but this happened because of looking at things in open mind. So you never know what can strike as an inspiration for you. So I would suggest that dancers look beyond themselves into other allied arts, into a whole lot of things that go around them. The inspiration can come from anywhere.
So beautifully said. Uncle, if I remember right, I think you were the first person, one of the first people to come up with props that can be dismantled and made easy for traveling. So, and you also spoke to Akilaka about these Bombays that went to the US for the Cleveland tour. So how did this idea come into play, and when did you kind of get the spark?
See, the spark, I think, happened, like I said, my life has always been interdisciplinary. Okay. Akila was talking about the feminine aspect of my journey. A lot of influences come because I have worked with textiles. Soon after art, I went into textile designing. So the exposure to textile was a big learning experience. The play, the color, the textures, all that which happens with designing was one of the aspects which reflects onto my work here. And like I said, the Tombai, it was very fascinating for me. How a cylinder could collapse and you could play around with it. So that is something I think, and also the necessity, also the need for people coming from abroad who wanted pillars, and we can't transport pillars and things like that there. So they wanted painted pillars which they can roll up and take and put it there, and once you put it on stage, it looks like a temple from India. So I think the necessity plus the work with other medias is, I think, the reason why all these developments happen.
came through. Lovely. There's Hema Auntie. Hi, Hema Auntie. It's good to see you on the live too. And oh, she's sitting right there. Yes, uncle. So you're also not one of these people who would just, put up a plan and then leave it to people and then just supervise it from somewhere else. Idu, I think Akilaka had mentioned, you're someone who would stay through, make sure everything comes according to plan, and just you're there. This is where the word trust comes into play, at least when it comes to you. So have you just worked on dance and music, or are they like allied things you've worked on? Have you worked for sets in theater and for television? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Okay. Come to the first point I would like to tell you about why I stay on there at the stage is even if you tell somebody to do, whatever needs to be done, final touch, unless it's made sure that you're there, it doesn't happen. And after doing all this, after taking all the care, and given the conditions of the sabhas that we work in, now probably abroad when you do the set and leave it, and nobody's going to come anywhere near and touch it. Okay.
Correct.
Here, just before the performance, you would have done everything. Somebody will come and move a side wing. Somebody will drop something, or move a prop somewhere. So the whole aesthetic gets affected. So it's very important that I have to stay, and it's my credibility which is at stake. So the personal reason that I have to justify what I'm doing. So that's one reason why I stay on there till the whole thing gets done. In spite of that, like I said, changes will happen. The sides get moved, all that will happen. And regarding the other fields that I've worked, I have done quite a bit of sets. Otherwise, on the other fields, I have early days, much before all this Sun TV and all came into play, I was asked to do set for a talk show. A.V. Ramanan was coordinating a talk show for which I did the sets, with Khushbu anchoring and all that. So I've done a set for that. Again, I used frames. See, again, for that, the inspiration came from films. I did a film appreciation course. The background of films came in. So a film roll became my prop as the backdrop, and the fabrics I used. All that happened in that talk show. So I've done for the talk show. I have done designs for some national program of dance and music.
Okay.
I have also worked in as an assistant art director in this Malayalam film called Swadik Tirnan.
What an absolutely beautiful movie.
There, so with that thing. And of course, if I should also mention your mother's Takadimita, where I also did a costume for anchor Bhanupriya. So I have been working in various fields like this, allied fields.
Very interesting. So have there been very challenging productions that you could perhaps talk to us about in terms of stress until the last minute and just challenges along the way? Could you recall any specific productions?
Challenges wise, I would like to tell you, there was what I did with Chidambaram. Okay, it is quite a challenge for me. When I went to Chidambaram the first time, I was asked to go there. Okay, when I saw the stage, it was looking exactly like the Sabha stage here, with the thatched roof and the side wings and all that. So the next year, I said, this is happening in a temple ambience, and I needed to break the stage free from all these tattis and the covering and all that stuff. Okay, Chidambaram again Akashalingam, so it had to be exposed. So what I did next year, I did an open stage completely. I just did a backdrop of just jute, and I used the Varaku as kalashams there. I created Nandis. So this is a very challenging thing to transform the closed stage into an open stage. Okay.
Right.
And a very interesting anecdote here, which I'd like to share. When I did this open air stage, as soon as it was done, just a little 1 hour before the performance, some of these organizers came running and told me, Dr. Padma Subramanian was going to be the first performer. is very unhappy with what you have done. You've done the stage, you left the stage open. The pani ila varum, so it's going to be difficult to dance and all that stuff. Okay. And then I said, it's too late to do anything anyway. And I said, as an artist, I know she will not have these feelings because she has danced in places like Khajuraho and Konark. And true enough, what happened, when she came on stage, she just turned her back to the audience. She was facing her back to the audience. She was looking at my stage with an Anjali Mudra, doing a pranam. She took a hand to the left side of her. From the bottom, she lifted her hand to the center, where I had the center opening, went to the right. Okay. So looked at the stage, left, right, all over, and then did a pranam to my stage and then turned around.
Wow.
Absolute applause. And I thought that is the most beautiful tribute
Way to show.
Another artist.
Absolutely.
Something which I think was very, very special.
Yes.
But of course, like I said, doing stage for Abhyasa was also challenging.
We actually have a question. Do you have any projects that did not go as per your plans and you had to manage with, manage last minute?
Not much in the dance and music field, no. But
Okay.
when I'm doing a lot of events and settings, it's happened. Once I did a setting where the whole thing got washed out in the rains, and I had to do something 24 hours, make a new set.
Oh,
Okay.
God. Yeah.
And because I did that, what I did is I returned half the money saying, this is not what I envisioned. So I'm returning half the money. So I've done that also. So those
Right.
kind of experiences are there off the dance stage. Okay. But
Correct.
in the dance stage, what I would like to talk about in terms of the costumes that I've done. I know you're going to be asking me about costumes.
I was just about to, yeah.
If you ask me a question, then I'll go on to costumes because something I'd like to talk to about costumes, which has been another absolute.
Absolutely. Yeah. I, in fact, wanted to talk to you about dancers coming to you initially with when they plan a production. Do you kind of help them with the color schemes, with the fabrics, and help them decide their costumes? Because you've worked with some extraordinary artists, and your costume designs have been so exceptionally beautiful. It's not the regular whatever we normally see. So yours, என்ன சொல்றது, உங்களுக்குன்னு ஒரு stamp இருக்கு. So how do you how did costumes happen?
Costumes happen, I think, because of my textile background. Like I said,
Okay.
work in textiles. So I think as an extension, and I was also doing stage, so it happened. And initially, while I was working with Radha Silk, I was a consultant designer for Radha Silks. Okay, where I revived the Pavadai Davani and all that. There's a big exhibition that happened. So at that point in time, Pushkala Gopal came up to me and said, "Why don't you design costumes for me for dance?" Okay.
Okay.
So when she came to me, and it was a production that she did. It started with the production. And the first thing I thought was, all the productions have been using the same Kanchipurams and South materials. So I said,
Correct.
why don't you do something different? Because it was Kacha Devyani. The theme also related to something little out of the ordinary. So I used a lot of Andhra. I focused my thing on Andhra. I used Ikaks and Puttapakas from Andhra. So that was the starting point for my costume. And then it led to doing costumes for Priyadarshini Govind and Anita Ratnam and other dancers. Okay. Now, while talking about costume designing, I'd like to tell you, it's very, very important that I understand the dancer well. So I need to know the personality of the dancer, and my design revolves around that. Okay. So I'll just show you one or two examples probably of what I've done. This is what I did for Anika Ratnam for Nachya.
How beautiful.
I did the entire props, everything for Anika for the first
So
Nachya
gorgeous.
production.
Yes.
Okay. And similarly for Priyadarshini Govind. Okay.
Wow.
This is
Yes.
the thing I did for Priyadarshini Govind.
Love the
And
colors
I've also,
and how you've kind
yeah,
of mixed and matched.
yeah. So this, I'll tell you the differences when I work. There was a time when, uh, in fact, coming to doing Priya's costume itself was because of, I think, Kalalni Mami, who said, Ramani, why don't you do something, bring some aesthetics to this very talented dancer called Priya. That's how I was introduced to Priya. So I set about, I showed you this costume. That was the first costume I did. And initially, of course, she was very skeptical about going for an off-white because they all used to
Yeah.
wear maroons and arakus and
Traditional colors.
traditional colors. So then when this worked, it became the most successful costume of what I did. Now coming to the designing aspect, when I do designing for costumes, what I do now for Priya will not work for what I do for Anita. The personalities are very different.
Correct.
So, in fact, when I was doing Nachyar, there was a kind of dilemma that I was in because it is the same time, same year, Priyadashini also wanted to do something on Andal, and both of them had asked me to design a costume for Andal.
Okay.
I was in a dilemma because I know I'm going to be true to each of the dancer. I'm going to do the best to what suits their personality. Now, what I'm going to do for Anita, who's able to carry off a little bold, flamboyant kind of look, will not work for somebody like Priya, who's a little more traditional. So this challenge was there. Of course, finally the Priya's thing didn't happen. So, but I always keep that in mind. I work with the dancer in mind. Like most recently, I did something for Uma Ramesh, where again I used something very, very different. I used something without borders. In fact, I did a product, costume for Varsha Monsoon, where I did 3 color changes of costumes, and I did something I think which is to date I think a little path. I mean, it sound a little boastful, but a little path-breaking work. I didn't use any ornamentation in terms of borders or booties and things like that.
Oh,
I
wow.
just played with colors. So the variations of colors, pinkish gray, bluish gray, blackish gray, to suit the moods of the composition. So that is how I work. So I think this is one of an interesting experience. And then at this point of time, when I'm talking of costumes, like I said, I would like to bring a very important person into mind. I have great respect for this man called Ayilu. I mean, he's a tailor, costumer, you can call him anything, but for me, he's an artist. When Crush Tissue came for the first time to the market, I took it to a dance costumer, I don't want to name the other person, flatly refused, saying, I can't do anything with this kind of material, I can't stitch. And when I went to Ayilu, he said, Vechittu pongo, paakalam. And believe me, he came up with the most magical costume using crushed tissue, which worked very good in later years.
He does have magical hands, uncle, because till date, I don't think anybody else's fit kind of equals Ayilu's fit.
Yeah, he's a true artist again. He's a great artist.
Correct. Absolutely. Uncle, I also have another very, very interesting question that you probably get asked very often. You are an art critic. You review performances. So, and you at the same time, you work with these same artists on their productions and their stage and costumes and all of that. So, are you kind of in a tricky position when you go to review an artist who you've worked very closely with? How does that dynamic work?
Okay. I would like to say that there's absolutely no this thing on my part. I have a kind of very clear policy of detaching myself from each of the areas. Now, when I'm doing the costume for a dancer, I'm looking only at the dancer and the aesthetics of the production, the personality of the production. Now, as a policy, I don't review the productions where I do either sets or costumes. That's a kind of vested interest would come in. So I don't review productions where I'm involved on an artistic way. But when I go for a performance, I I know all the dancers, I've worked with many of them, but I'm very, very clear that I detach myself from that. When I go to the performance, I sit there with an absolutely open mind and look only at that day's performance. That artist might be the most beautiful artist who have impressed me so many times in so many ways. But when that program happens that day, it's bad for me. You know? So I do not mix up to, I don't get carried away by the fact that I know the dancer, I know the person. No.
Lovely. That's a beautiful quality. I think it's very difficult to
It's
kind of
very
cultivate.
important to detach yourself. In fact, like I say, artists first, I think, should learn to be self-critical. They should know their own strengths. They should look into their art. They should look at. So they have to be critical of their work. Okay, I have been criticized as an artist, as a designer. Okay, there have been times when I've been criticized. Okay, even when I did the sets for one of the very interesting productions which came my way, Siddharani Raghupati's Mahmuda. I did the costumes, I did the sets, I did the promo. I'll show you
It was a gorgeous production.
okay.
Yes, I
I
remember
did,
the invite.
I did this holding, the banner, everything. So this is one instant where they paid me well, they gave me credit, all that. Okay. So where
How
again,
lovely.
I was ready for criticism, and I have heard people criticizing the set that I did there. The costumes are all very interesting, but the set was very minimalistic. So somebody said, "Why is the set so minimalistic?" You know, but I had consciously done without see. They should understand. I did the conscious minimalist set because the lighting was done by another senior lighting designer.
Mhm.
And he had planned using a multiple array of colors on the stage. So when he's throwing in so many colors, if I were to do a set which is also elaborate and gorgeous, it'll become very overpowering. And on top of it, the dance is all in costumes. So it'll become overpowering. So I converted my whole set into something minimalistic. So this uh, aspect of judging your own work, criticizing your own work is very, very, very important, which I think all dancers should do. And
Correct.
okay, yeah. So
And sometimes,
they all should,
truly, like you say, I think less is more.
yes, less is more. Yes, yeah. And I think artists should come forward to take help. You can't be doing everything. Today, sometimes, I see I've grown up watching and admiring the high degree of aesthetics which I've seen Rukmini Devi's productions. She's used a
Yes.
maximum array of colors across the stage,
And the
but
costumes.
not the costumes that she's used, but nothing will stand out and look bad. There's kind of a harmony and aesthetic sensibility which is there. So today, what is happening, either because of budgetary constraints or I want to do everything, they all try to do everything themselves. I only would wish people would sit back and watch their own performances and see what it feels, because it's not uh, working well. If you don't understand textiles, you don't understand the drape, what works,
Right.
if you recreate what Rukmini Devi has done in terms of the colors, you have to understand the drape of the fabric, the way it falls. If you see why the Kurti skirts is an example.
Mm.
When you use a Kurti skirt, it's so important that the Kurtis wear heavy, heavy skirts. So when you twirl, when you move around the Kurti movements, the skirt does not fly. It stays in place and looks beautiful. Whereas
Yes.
today, what happens, they use the flimsiest of materials. When you dance around those kind of movements, become very, very unaesthetic. So they have to
Very
be
true.
aware of all these aspects of material too.
Right. Ramani uncle, I think the most important point that you've spoken about so far is finance, about budgeting right for productions or just artwork in general. So what would you advise artists or dancers? Like, what is your outlook?
In terms of
Finance, what do you, I know there's a lot to be done, and dancers are always kind of um, when it comes to planning productions, they're always kind of it is an expensive process. So how would you what would you advise dancers? Like, how can we kind of deal with the situation where financially, like, artists aren't paid much? So what do you think can be done?
See, that is the case, then I think you should have the sensibility of looking around and creating your own things in an aesthetic manner. Okay.
Okay.
Which doesn't come very easily to a lot of them. So I think I would advise that you have some certain amount, build up a certain amount of finance before you embark on productions. Otherwise, be content with solo productions. And sometimes I find today also the scenario is such, they will tell you that they don't have money to spend. Okay. And then they go around hiring a huge white screen and projecting images, the huge cyclorama images, the whole lot of things floating around. So when you have the money for that, utilize that kind of a money to create something which you can reuse. Now, also when you create a set, it's a kind of one-time investment. If you're doing a production, you can have any number of shows and you have the aesthetic there, and you're not going to be paying the artist or the designer for repeat shows. You're doing it, paying only for that. So I think they
Correct.
should work out, get ready with the budget, and then approach somebody to do. Okay, don't take upon everything yourself. You can't be a choreographer,
Managing
person,
everything.
plus thing. So learn to
Yes.
delegate and share the space.
That's a good point. Uncle, could you talk a little bit about your contribution to this beautiful hotel in Tanjore, Swatma?
Swatma. Okay. It is an interesting assignment that came my way. When again, Kritika Subramaniam was a dancer, asked me to come forward and create an art gallery using old portraits and images into the hall that they have performances and all that. So I worked on that. And then she also wanted me to do some textile drapes for the cushions and the bedspreads and the paneling of that beautiful heritage. So I went around my textile background. See, I do a lot of hand painted
Yes.
sari, which is again a passion. So I use my painting skills, printing skills to create something which will go very beautifully for this heritage hotel. So I did the bed covers, cushions, and the setting. So that was an interesting experience.
It's such a beautiful place to visit.
Yeah, this.
Yeah, it really is. And as an artist, I think you've planned and kind of executed a lot of exhibitions, both traditional and contemporary, and you're one of the first people to have worked on the collage concept. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Before I go to that, I also, along with the dance, one thing which I'd like to talk about is also been some interesting collaborations that I've done, okay, with artists. And coming to collage, I'll show you this particular one. Okay, collage. Can you see this is a collage?
Oh, beautiful. Oh, yes, yes.
And this side you see is separate assembly. So that is a very interesting.
How beautiful.
He saw my collage and he said, "We need to collaborate."
Uncle, your audio is a little feeble.
Okay. Is that better now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
So she saw my collage and she wanted to collaborate with me. So we did this show together. It was a Shiva theme, and this Neelkant, which I showed you, what inspired her to come up with this show. She did a whole lot of pieces on Shiva. And very interestingly, what happened, because she wanted something to be done, I created an Ardhanari for her in collage. We had two separate images on either side of the stage. She did Shiva first and Shakti on the other side later. And then we brought the two images together in the center, and she danced around that to get that Ardhanari feel. So similarly, there was a very collaboration when I did a presentation for
Uncle, could you show it closer? Because I just turned off the comments so people can have a better look of your work.
Yeah, is it clear?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, this is the
Yes.
Neelkant.
Thank you, Uncle.
Yeah. So then another collaboration I did was working with Aruna Sainam for Lit for Life, where her music and my collages collaborated. So I listened to a lot of her music. I had a big challenge uh, uh, working on the Krishna Kaliya Tilana, for which she's famous for. So I
Yes.
created a Tilana. It took me almost 1.5 months to create that collage,
Wow.
looking at it, listening to it again and again to get that
Feel.
image. And similarly, I did another collaboration with Ramli Ibrahim in Orissa, to Malaysia for an Odyssey program,
Mhm.
so for which, so these are three interesting collaborations I did. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ramli
So-
Anna was actually was on the live. He was actually watching this chat.
No. I wanted to also tell you, coming back to the original thing,
Yes.
my passion is, my basic thing is art, like I said. I'm an artist, and for me, the medium has been collage. After doing painting, drawing, a whole lot of other things, some of collage fascinated me, and I've continued to explore collage, which again, see, the times also when you are a little ahead of your times, what happens is people don't start really accepting it. So collage is in the process. People are still have not come to terms as much with collage as they do painting and drawing. Has become an accepted form, but collage is still taking its own time to come into the mainstream.
Right. Right. Ramli Anna is actually watching this.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Right.
He's
That's
right
great.
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
That's a beautiful experience again of an artist who cherishes another artist. Okay, so the couple of these people, I could probably show you the Kaliya Tilana for a minute.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll turn off the comments for a bit. Oh, wow. How beautiful.
Now, this Kaliya Tilana is not the pretty Kaliya that you see in all the images that are
Correct.
there. Yeah. So I had to work, because I had to bring in the energy and that feel that Aruna brings to the Kaliya Tilana. It is
Yes.
not one of the pleasant melodic renderings of a Tilana. So I needed to bring that into focus. So that is the struggle that I had with creating this particular Tilana.
Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. There's a lot of energy in that work.
Yeah. See, that again comes, like I said, from the artist, from the person with whom I'm working with. So Aruna's music was the inspiration for this. A lot of credit should go to Aruna's music for challenging me to create this. I had done a Kaliya much earlier, almost 1.5 decades back, which is a pretty Kaliya. There are of course energies of ferocious Kaliya, but Krishna was very pretty in that. But here you see the Krishna is not. Krishna is equally troubled. So that so the artist, I think, is the one who inspires what you do.
Absolutely. And Uncle, you're so artistic, like on the whole, I'm sure there's a lot of creative energy. So what do you kind of do to unwind and relax, or when you're frustrated about things not going right? What is your go-to activity, or do you have a hobby that you do to kind of relax?
See, one thing I enjoy, I must tell you, is sleeping, which is one way of letting go of. Okay.
Yeah,
but
it helps you get the rest also. So
yeah, my passion is also in music. Like I said, I've been trained in music, so I unwind myself with a lot of music. I'm very fond of old Hindi film songs which I sing.
beautiful.
So I get into that. I sing old songs, a whole lot of things, and music inspiration is one reason why gives me a kind of this thing to unwind.
Yeah.
And
Uncle, have you composed
Sure.
music or jatis or anything for artists?
Huh?
Have you composed music or jatis or anything for artists?
Not really. I have sung for dancers. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I have sung for dancers, and I have, in fact, Valli had asked me to do Natavangam for her. Okay.
How nice. Not many people know this side of Ramani uncle.
Not many. There's no many don't know that I sing itself. And
Yeah.
For Anita, Shrikant, and a couple of others for Bharatanatyam programs, Dhananjay and I trained me. Okay, the Varnams that they trained. So I've done that. Natuvanga was something which Valli wanted me to do, but somewhere I was more interested with singing, and I felt I was not this thing for Natuvanga. I was not made out for doing the Natuvanga. These are
Right.
power which I thought would not work. Okay.
Mm.
So there's as an extension, I've been asked question which I've been asked very often is about my background and to be a critic. So I
Yes.
was telling you, so it is this knowledge of music, this learning of dance, the dance jatis and things like that I've learned. So I have a fair knowledge of everything, and overall I look at the complete aesthetics of everything, music.
Correct.
So all that is there. So that is the reason why I think I got into this aspect of being a critic too.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Were you going to show us something, uncle?
Yeah, before wind up,
Were you going to
show you also, I know how much time we have. I want to show one or two of my collages which are my favorite. One is this.
Please.
Can you see this?
Yes.
Can you see?
Yes. Not very clearly.
Yeah.
Not very clearly. There's konja reflection. Adinale it's. Yes. Much better. Oh, wow. So beautiful.
So this, like I said, was something inspired by Chaurasia's music. I kept on listening to flute.
Gorgeous.
And Krishna was born out of that. Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then
And look
also,
at the color hues.
Yeah. It all came because of the musical
Inspiration.
Okay. Another thing I would like to show is something which might be of interest. It's complete art in the sense. Taking an artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Now this. You
The Mona Lisa.
The Lisa. Yes. Okay. So this
wow.
is, when for which can be a takeaway for dancers that we're talking to. You can get inspired by any artwork. Okay. And the best way to do that initially is to probably reproduce the artwork in its entirety. I mean, not on stage, I'm telling you, but learn to do the artwork, try it out, and then give it your own interpretation. That's what I did to this Mona Lisa. I wanted to do the Mona Lisa. I was very fascinated by her artwork in my own way. I wanted it to be a Mona Lisa, but it should not be that pretty Mona Lisa which I wanted to reproduce. It had to be my Mona Lisa. I call it the Mera Lisa. Yeah. So I had to do
How cute.
Mera Lisa because my interpretation of Mona Lisa. So when people are taking something, recreating, it's so important that their personality, their own thought process gets into it.
Correct.
Not just copying of anything. Because
and at the same time, you're celebrating the art of another artist.
Celebrating the art of another artist. And no blatant copying, I see a lot of blatant copying that's happening in terms of visual effects, in terms of the choreography. You take something from somewhere and you can make out that this is taken from here. So don't be so blatant. Take elements, get inspired, nothing wrong. Yeah, but do your own language. So important.
So beautifully said. Thank you so much, Ramani uncle, for sharing so many beautiful things about your journey with us today. It was a privilege to have you, to kind of feature you in the Circle of Trust series. So thank you so much on behalf of ALA.
Thank you very much, Kritika. It was lovely talking to you. Yeah. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you all so much for staying and, staying throughout the conversation and for logging in today. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Uncle.
Thank you.